So my first question for you, Patrick, is because you've done a lot of, you've done a lot of things with your career, your time, a lot of bands, obviously you're a comic writer as well. My first question is, how do you define success as a person and as an artist? So personally, how do you define success? What does it mean to you?
I guess, because you asked personally, you didn't, so I don't want anybody to be offended by my answer, because it does not need to apply to them. But I would say if I could reach the level where like my partner doesn't got to work anymore, that would be like very successful to me. You know what I mean? That would be kind of like my idea of financial success, to have like a reliably high single worker income for the household. That would be like pretty successful, I guess. It's a very middle class ambition. It's not like it's not like becoming a multi-millionaire, but I would consider that pretty successful. Yeah, but survival where like, like your partner can stay home, take care of a kid, or just pursue things that interest them. Because I just assumed that I would be working forever, so it's not anything to me to work. I think it's mostly fun, but I would say that would be personal success. And as in terms of how maybe the world contextualizes success, but as in terms of being an artist, it's a really tough question, because like I run into people who have a great deal more success in music than I do, and then I also run into people who are really struggling to get 300 people to listen to their song. So it's really I find it like, for example, let me put it like this: the person that only has 300 people listening to their song and is like kind of desperate for anybody to give them a shot or whatever, I would like to tell that person that 300 or 300,000, unless you're buying a house with it, it's all kind of the same. It's nice to have anybody tell you that what you did made an impact on them, but that's also can't be the reason that you do it, because there's going to come a time where nobody says that to you. You know what I mean? Like even Madonna, you know what? There's this great Richard Gere article where because he's Buddhist and all this, and so he's into like kind of the deletion of the ego and concepts like this, and he wrote this article about how he was one of the most famous people in the world, and now if you're under 30, you have no idea who he is, and he's very at peace with that. And I think that's a good goal for any artist, because eventually people are just not going to care about you, and that it just is what it is. So I would say that it sounds so corny, but if you're making something that you feel represents you, or a part of you at least, and expresses that in a way that is artful and interesting, then I would say that you're about as successful as any of us get, because after that, it's just financial stuff. And don't get me wrong, that's cool. Anybody that can make a living doing this, that's great for them. But like, everybody's going to forget you, like on a long enough timeline that nobody is remembering. There's great artists who are just footnotes now, and as time marches on, they won't even be that anymore, and that's just the nature of the thing. So you can't, to the artists that are like so invested in posterity and so consumed by making their mark on the world, don't even worry about that, because you can't make a mark on the world. The world doesn't give a shit about you. So like it's or at least won't in 50 years, So and if you wanted to be successful in that other way, that that financial way, I would urge you to get into finance or real estate.
Yeah,
You know?
absolutely. So I guess the logical question then for me, well, to come from that is, so when you put out music, what do you? It sounds like it's a bit of a cliche. Because what do you do? What do you do it for? Is it? It sounds like it's for you primarily, but obviously a lot of people. I mean, I'm gonna share a little bit about what the band means to me in a bit. But like, to you, what keeps you doing it? When if you don't want to get out of bed, if you don't want to get in the van, you've got to work as well. What is it that keeps you doing it? Because you've got that in the back of your mind, like, that attitude of like, I'm not gonna 50 years time, who's gonna remember me? You know what I mean? I hope that doesn't come across like a challenge, but
no, not at all.
What is it? What is it you do it for?
So this is going to be a very aromantic answer. It's going to be an answer that is not going to inspire anybody in any way.
Yeah.
It's just what I do, in the same way that, like, if you're predisposed towards creating things with your hands, then if you're a carpenter, I don't think anybody, like, I'm not dismissing your question. I'm just saying that nobody asks a carpenter this question. Nobody asks an electrician this question. No, but I think the same thing applies. It's that's the vocation that spoke to them, and they presume that they're going to do it until their hands fall off. So it's same thing. It's and again, I hate to really take the mystique out of music entirely, but it's really just a thing that you do because it's a vocation that spoke to you for reasons that you could never really articulate.
Yeah.
And then you just do it until you can't do it anymore. and that's all there really is to it.
Yeah, man. Now that does make sense. So if I say to you, because one of my questions further down the line, but I'll bring it up now, is when you look at, and we're going to talk about Hygiene in a sec, but when you say look at Cheer and what that did for the band, you got millions of streams on a couple of, thousands of streams on those tracks, a lot of notoriety as well. Same with same with Self-Defense Family. A lot of people love your music. A lot of people love what you do. Do you pay attention to that metric side of it? Because you are, from my standards as an outsider, I'm not in the band obviously, you are a successful band, you are a notable artist, you know what I mean? So do you pay attention to that kind of, does it register to you, that kind of stuff, or not at all?
No, just not in any meaningful way. I like, my band is having a fun time watching the Spotify go up.
Yeah.
So I am in, and my girlfriend tells me too. So I'm informed of that. Like, I'm not going to pretend I don't know what the general number of listeners is. I do at this moment happen to, but generally I do not. And I do not get very, I'm not a very business-minded person, so stuff like analytics don't serve me very well. You know what I mean? There's almost nothing I could do with them. Like, a smart person or a business-minded person would look at certain analytics and say, "Oh, well, it seems like we have a growing number of listeners in Paraguay. We should tour Paraguay. That would just make sense, right?" But I'm just not business minded in that way. So no, I'm generally unaware of that type of stuff, because I also think that people that are hyper aware of it do themselves a disservice of knowing on the way down.
Yeah.
And I think that they stress themselves out. It's all good to know what your numbers are when those numbers are going up. But what does it mean when they collapse? If it's just interesting to some people, that's fine. But there's probably a great number of I would imagine young people who kind of, they base their idea of a band's success on these numbers, and these numbers are, they're born to go down. You know what I mean? You know, to have something is to agree to someday not have it, right? So I just always, the way that I put it to people is that if I took positive things seriously, I would then have to take negative things seriously, and I'm just not interested in either one.
Yeah, no, that's,
You know?
no, it's fair enough, man. It's fair enough. I think it's interesting because I certainly, I used to be one of those people that used to really look at, you know, who have I interviewed and what does it all mean? And actually, it's one of my things. Reason why I like Drug Church so much is that it makes me kind of look at it makes me look at certain things about myself that I might not always like. You know, makes me confront some shit that I perhaps maybe haven't wanted to look at. And Drug Church is a reflective band for me. I listen to it and I love the melody is fantastic. You know, I can have a great time in the car and hopefully, you know, coming to see you, I think in Manchester at the Outbreak Festival. I'm looking forward to that. But I think it's different me saying that as a fan. You know, how do you, you know, how would you, and I guess I probably know the answer because you kind of already just answered it, but how do you want Drug Church to be perceived? And again, how has that changed over the years? Because again, to me, it means a lot, you know, that I mean, it's got something personal to me, but then it's different for you as the artist. Do you want it to inspire people? Do you want it to make people confront their shit, even if it's stuff they don't like about themselves? You know, like how do you want it to be perceived in any way, and how has that changed over time?
That's a good question. I think when you're young, it's very important to you to curate or monitor how you are perceived by others, and whether you're trying to be cool or desirable or whatever your goals are, right? But I really don't think that this is a good use of anybody's time as they get older. I don't think that your goal in life has to be to make money. Sadly, it's not mine, you know, like I wish it was sometimes, but you should probably, well, let me put it like this. Sometimes online, you'll see 24-year-olds fighting about something online, and you know, a 40-year-old will come into the conversation, and the people in their 20s will say, "Don't you have a kid to raise? Get the fuck out of here." And that's a very dismissive sort of thing, and it's probably depressing for that 40-something-year-old. But there's a kernel of truth, which is peacocking around, trying to be the center of attention, looking for validation. These are young people pursuits that you should be over by the time that you are, you know, have a middle schooler, you know what I mean, or whatever it is. So like, it's for myself, I don't really care very much how we're perceived. There's certain things that I think are lame, you know, that I don't want to do, but that's how I perceive myself. I've said it in other interviews, so I don't, I apologize for repeating myself, but
it's all good, man.
But I really think that expression, what other people think of me is none of my business. I really think that that's how you live a fulfilling life, is if you base your happiness or your unhappiness or your, your feelings of, basically there's always going to be someone looking for a reason to dismiss you and not take you seriously or invalidate you or whatever. And on a long enough timeline, you will give them a reason. You will put out a song that isn't good. You will say something stupid on stage. You will provide people a reason to not like you. So the person that doesn't want to like you and is looking for a reason not to, will eventually be validated. And you really can't give a shit about people that aren't you.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. No, I get that, man. It's weird actually talking to you. Like it actually helps personally, because I think, yeah, when I was younger, I went through all that shit. You know what I mean? And like going through, like, worrying about what people perceive me, particularly as someone with a disability. You're like, fuck, you know, people are going to think this, and they did actually. You know, all the times
Sure.
they do think that stuff, and so I was so worried about perception, and it was only when I started doing my counseling training, but also talking to people like yourself, like, actually, this is really useful for me. But you know, it is that kind of, maybe it's an age thing. It just kind of like chills you out a bit. You worry less about it, and I'm certainly trying to anyway.
Not to sound morbid, but by the time that you got a couple friends who die,
Yeah,
you get the memo that if you can like have a stable family life and a job that you like, you're doing better than 99% of the people on the fucking planet. And that other people's perceptions, particularly when it comes to really stupid notions like cool or uncool or whatever, like they're of no utility to you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So sorry to bring the vibe down.
No. Actually, that moves me nicely on to my next week. We'll do a couple of album promo questions in a minute. But one of the things that I really wanted to ask you, because I know you'll talk about it from reading previous interviews, is what I do as part of my day job is work with young people who have they have struggled with mental health issues. They have maybe been victims of abuse. They've really struggled in their life, and they come to, you know, a studio space and a community area, and they can make music, and they use music as catharsis, which is it's a beautiful thing. But they really fucking struggle to get out of bed in the morning sometimes, and they might,
Sure.
you know, they might be like, they might be onto the, you know, they might have a great song in their head, but they just don't want to. They're not asked. They can't be asked to do it because they're just not in that mind frame. So if I could ask you, on your worst days, like, what is it you mentioned? I mean, not to put words in your mouth. You mentioned you obviously you have the band, you have a partner, you have these things, you know, work and stuff. But what is it that gets you out of bed on your worst day? How do you keep yourself going when you are really not feeling it? Because again, people might be like, "Oh man, Patrick's got it made. He's drug test, touring the world."
Oh,
Awesome.
no.
Yeah, you know, that perception. There's that perception there, you know.
Yeah, let me interrupt those people.
Yeah.
Let me divorce them from this idea that they got. No, I mean, look, I do have the good fortune of not having any of the major mental health problems that a lot of people struggle with, and that's pretty major. You know what I mean? That's a pretty big advantage, right? Like if I don't have a chemical imbalance that is, I mean, I guess you could read as a disability of sorts or whatever. If you don't have those, you're already pretty blessed in most respects, right?
Yeah,
and then so I can't, you know, I wouldn't necessarily want to speak for somebody that's got like unipolar depression and like really can't leave their bed, but I would say for that a great many people, to me personally, I just always examine the alternative, and it's like, I don't know. Do you have a curious mind? Well, you're probably going to get out of bed eventually. You know what I mean? Because there's not enough going on in bed to satisfy a curious mind. So I don't consider myself very productive. My name is attached to a lot of things, so people think I'm some kind of workhorse. But I mean, I watch the same 2 hours of YouTube a day that everybody else on planet Earth does. You know what I mean? So it's I don't claim any superhuman productivity, but I will say that if you are relatively easily bored or just have a curious mind, you just let that urge you out of bed, because you're gonna want to pursue some type of stimulation through your day. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
whether that's reading a Wikipedia that really captivates you, you know, searching something out that some dumb, even if it's a dumb consumer item, right? Like, even if you're like, oh, I really want that new X, Y, or Z band record, right, that just came out. I guess I'll engage in some consumerism. I mean, look, we can say what we want about consumerism, but it gets a lot of people out of their house. You know,
It's a good point, man. Yeah. Yeah.
So like, because when I was younger, before mail order was like just ubiquitous, it was, you know, occasionally you'd still have to go places to seek something out and find. You know what? Now that you have me thinking about it, mail order might have ruined a lot of people's lives. But yeah, I mean, I couldn't give any advice except the same reason that I read like 25 Wikipedias a day is probably the same reason that I get out of bed, which is just something's always interesting. You know what I mean? Something's always curious enough.
I like it. Yeah, I like it, man. Nah, that's cool. That's different. It's a different take that, you know, because I do like that question. You know, it's a different take on it. I think the curious mind thing is it's interesting actually. Yeah, absolutely. If you have the curious mind, then you I don't want to say you definitely will, but you're more inclined to want to get out of bed. You know?
Yeah, I mean, on my worst days, I still probably watch some World War II documentary. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like on my worst days, I probably still read some Wikipedia. You know, it's and I'm no sort of intellect. You know, nobody's coming to me for history lessons or lessons on anything. But I, you know, even if the information goes right out in one ear and out the other, it's still life affirming to take in that information.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Absolutely. I got like 4 or 5 more questions now. I will do an album plug-in question because it's good to do on the cycle you're on. But I want to ask you, because we do some work within comic books as well. We started a comic podcast and stuff, and similar type of vibe. For any art, well, you're a writer. So for any writers who want to get into comic books, I haven't checked out. I've obviously seen Frontiersman, but I haven't bought a copy. I will be doing that shortly because it looks cool. But for any writers, aspiring writers, like, was that an easy process for you? You say you're not a productive person. Again, to me, like, that's pretty productive, dude. But like, well, what was that like to get into that? Was it an easy process to get into that, as well as doing Drug Church and all that? How was that process for you? And what would you advise somebody else who was interested in comic book writing to do?
Depends a great deal on your goals, because in North America we have the direct market, which is just a fancy name for comic book stores, right?
Yeah.
And if your goal is to compete in that arena, you know, and there's really 3 publishers that you could make a living at, but there's only like maybe 6 total that would get you the visibility that you would want as an artist, right? But that's a very specific goal. It's also entirely possible to and there's many barriers to entry. There are many gatekeepers. It's a very frustrating process. But if you just want to create something for the sheer joy of creation and to see what you want to put out in the world manifested, it's got the lowest barrier to entry to almost any art form in the world. And in that respect, I think that it's anybody could start today, and you know, they're going to produce some really terrible work, but it's going to be on a road to creating something that they're proud of. And they are particularly blessed if they don't have these kind of like maybe foolish ambitions of kind of trying to compete in the direct market, make a career out of comic books. Because there's also, like, when we say comic books, there's you know, that's a million different things to a million different people, and there's aspects of it like there's art comics that never touch the direct market, they don't really go into retail stores at all. And there's a great many people who find satisfaction or a career in that, you know. I'm kind of in like middle brow genre comics, direct market. It's really, that's a highly competitive and frustrating space to try to enter.
Yeah.
But comics themselves are wide open. Comics can be anything. Comics can be online. There's no barrier to entry if your goal is to express yourself.
Yeah. So I guess it's kind of like music, isn't it? What you're saying is like it's the competing that can kind of kill you a little bit. If you're focused on competing and being better than somebody else, then it can probably kill you. It can kill you a little bit. Whereas if you're doing it to create, I don't know. Is that what I'm hearing? Yeah.
Oh yeah, but there's no barrier to entry on doing it simply for fulfillment, and it is, as you say, it's if you got to choose to enter a particular rat race. There's a great many, like if you ever play or even just attend like a typical rock club of some type, you'll see a million stickers for bands that you've never heard of, and they're typically terrible names, probably for terrible bands, but those are people that got together, played 10 shows maybe locally, and they expressed themselves, they had a good time with it, and they didn't have pie in the sky ambitions, you know. Yeah. And if that's all they wanted from that experience, then that's awesome. And maybe they enjoy their own recordings and they revisit those with some frequency. It's basically just deciding on what your ambitions are and why you even have them, you know, like that should probably be examined, because there's a lot to be said for kind of answering the question, why are you chasing something? Is it because it's of interest to you, or
it's kind of looking at what you want from something and what you want to get from it. And
there's no wrong answer.
Absolutely. It's what works for you. Absolutely, man. All right, man. All right, we'll do the plugging questions. We'll obviously it's important to do on these things. Obviously, Hygiene is just out. People have been enjoying it. Like we said, a lot of people checking it out. You can't speak for the rest of the bands, so I'm going to ask you this question: how has this record and its development pushed you in new ways as an artist?
Well, there's a lot of problem solving in it for me, because the guys wrote a relatively melodic record, and I'm not a very, very talented vocalist, so there's a lot of kind of I guess workarounds for having a limited capacity as a musician. You know, I can only hit 2 notes, and they're certainly not limited in the same way I am. So for me, as much as Drug Church is a creative endeavor, it's in the studio, at least, it's very much a matter of problem solving. And I think because they went maybe a hair more melodic than on Cheer, there was more of those type of problem solving incidents, choices, we'll call them, had to be made in the studio.
Yeah. Problem solving, you mean like in a technical way, or for you personally? Like when you say problem solving, what does that mean?
So for me personally, like, if they supply a highly melodic song that would really benefit from a more classically trained or just even moderately talented vocalist, but I'm the vocalist that they have, then that means that they're, what they probably, it's a matter of working with what I have to make a song pop, which requires a lot of like, imagine if you had to paint a sunset with just black and gray. You know what I mean? Like those are the only 2 colors you got. You got to be pretty clever. So on occasion I have to rise to the standard of clever.
Yeah, yeah, I get it. I do get that. So like when you're creating, again, for yourself as an artist, it's about rising to their, I guess you're complimenting your bandmates here. It's about rising to their standard of musicianship, but for you creatively as a lyricist, and in terms of the content of what you're doing. Have I got that right, or am I off there? Is that
No, that's correct, because the band is progressing as musicians. They get better with every record, but I'm I started 10 steps behind them, and I probably am still 8 steps behind them. So it's a matter of if I'm getting any better, I'm getting better in inches, and they're probably getting better in feet. So or in UK language, meters, I guess, right? So they're getting better in meters, and I'm getting better in centimeters, I guess. What do you guys do?
It's better. Well, I was going to say it's better than not, making progress at all, man. I relate to that a little bit. Like I used to play in a punk band, and if you have CP, and a lot of people in sort of metal was kind of bordered on metal for a little while, and if you have CP and like trying to be in a metal band, a lot of people are like, double kick, use the double kick, and that was a problem for me, using a double kick pedal. So what I would do is I would compensate with like hip hop style beats and lots of cymbal smashes, and it would make it work. And I guess similarly, you've got to kind of be creative or clever about how you can create things if the people around you are, as you said, because I like your vocal style. I like the spoken word vibes. I like the kind of the louder parts, for example. So I'm complimentary of your vocal style, but you're saying to me, you're not as proficient musically as they are, but you've found a way to compensate by sort of improving steadily, I guess, and getting better steadily.
Yeah, getting better steadily, but also, like I say, a lot of it is a lot of. They might seem, because the songs, in my view, they work when they're done. This might not jump out at you, but a lot of the choices made are not intuitive to an actual singer. I'm doing a lot of things that a singer would not do, and that's because I can't do what a singer does. So in some respects, it makes for a more unique sound, and I think agree. on some level, maybe a more relatable sound, because most people cannot sing, right? Yeah. So in that respect, there's probably some virtue to it, and people connect with that, but it's a lot of choices made to obscure the fact that I'm really only hitting 2 notes ever.
Yeah, but equally, like I say, you've created a different sound, a sound that is, not that I'm trying to blow smoke up your ass here, dude, because that's not what I'm trying to do, but I think it is a different sound. If you listen to, obviously there's the hardcore influence of what you do, but it's really accessible. And it means a lot to a lot of people, and I think a lot of people can dance to it and enjoy it at shows, and I'm sure you're seeing that every night at the moment, and I think there's something to be said for that. Like you're still creating, you're still doing it. You didn't go, I'm not a singer, I'm not a classic, I'm not a singer in the sense of X, Y, and Z person, but you found a way to do it. You found a way to make it work. You found a way to create an accessible sound. And I think that's really creative, man. I think that's really cool. It's not easy.
This is not to talk myself out of playing music anymore. But like when I'm asked this question, I always reflect on why I would stick with something that I have no natural aptitude for. It'd be like, it's a compelling question. Like, was I delusional? I don't think so. I think I always realized that I wasn't great at it. Do I just love it so much that I am willing to embarrass myself at times? That maybe, but like, it's, at some level it becomes, because it's art, I'm given a pass.
Yeah.
But if this was hockey, people would say, why do you continue to try out for like the New York Rangers? You are terrible. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I guess what I'm telling you is I'm living in an Adam Sandler film.
Fair enough, man. Fair enough. I think there's a lot to be said there, and I relate more than you know. Obviously, I won't go into too much detail, but I definitely relate to that because again, not a technical musician, but I did it because I wanted to, and because I was always told that I wouldn't do it or I couldn't do it. So
Sure.
I fucking did it, and then I ended up playing around the world on small scale, like in a small scale, not like on Drug Church level, but like way more than I probably deserved
Listen, it's all a small scale before it's Metallica. You know what I mean? It's all a small scale.
Good point, man. Good point. Yeah. Two more questions, because again, I'm aware you got a show to do and some shit to get on with. So again, I appreciate the time. Again, plugging questions. Obviously, we're in the UK. You are coming over for some festival shows. When are we going to see you back? What message have you got for UK fans who are long-time fans, and for people that are just starting to listen to Hygiene, people that are just starting to pick it up? What is your message for your UK followers, fans, whatever you want to call them?
So this is no bullshit. And I, you know what? I'll make sure that everybody understands I'm being sincere, because I'm going to issue an insult as well as a compliment, so that nobody thinks I'm just blowing smoke here. Your climate is among the worst on the planet.
Yep.
And we continue to come back there, and that's not for the sightseeing. It's because it's because the people in the UK have been so good to us for so long. So we're very grateful for them. It is one of our favorite places to play. Not one of my favorite places to drive, but one of my favorite places to play.
Yeah.
And I'm really, just enter the rock cliche now. I'm just happy to have anybody new that might be jumping on now come to a show. I think you'll enjoy it even more. And if for anybody that's seen us 6 times, super grateful for you. You know what I mean? Like, thanks for, I guess you keep sending me back to this island where I keep getting sick every time I go, but I am also grateful for the opportunity to play in front of you.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Absolutely. Like I say, I'm looking forward to seeing you at Outbreak. It'll be the first time I've seen you, even though I've listened for a long time. So very much looking forward to that. And I'm sure a lot of people are looking forward to seeing you. Before we finish up, this is your chance to plug and promote anything. Obviously, you could promote the album if you wish, but is there anything else you would like to plug before we finish up?
No, I am, everybody that partners with me in anything resents the living shit out of me because I don't promote anything.
Okay.
So I'll keep with that.
Nice one. Okay, man. Good stuff. I appreciate it. Well, thank you so much for your time, man. I look forward to catching you soon for sure.
Dom, thank you very much for your time.